I figured I'd spend a moment talking about these old Craftsman USA. So this must be near the end of the Western Forge. We have WFX, so I believe that's Western Forge 46343. Laser etching, so that's what makes it evident that it's probably a 90s tool or something like that. Definitely decent forging. Channel locks makes a set like this. 45 degree angled head slip joint pliers that have 3 positions. There is a bit of a booger. You can see where it gets a little bit thicker here, so on this particular pair it's a little bit tight. But people were talking about these Quinn angled needle nose pliers, and I thought you can get these pliers, which are really thin. Actually, Channel Lock makes some, which are actually pretty decent quality. But I just wanted to point out the 45 degree head slip joint pliers are really handy. If you're talking about automotive fuse pulling, you get some actually reasonably strong but pretty narrow jaws. I mean, this is a tiny little pair of these. I mean, these guys are pretty small. If we measure these out, we're looking at a set of 5-inch pliers, and you could easily snap these in your hand if you're really wrench on them. But as far as pulling fuses, somebody had mentioned these, and I can see where these would work in a lot of situations. But of course, in automotive uses, there's either tiny fuses, standard blade fuses, or the bigger box fuses for high power, and these, something like these would be just absolutely great. The actual jaw gap's a little bit better because you get a better grip on the thinner fuses. And then the multiple positions, the whole point to this is so that you don't have jaws that are trying to, for instance, grip something just by the very edge. Instead, you have something like this where you can expand it out and just get a little bit more grip, just a little bit more surface area. And so this would work great for the box fuses, really small. And then these will tolerate twisting and wiggling a bit better, I would say, than some much bulkier needle nose. And all sorts of other situations, such as pulling wire connectors. It's just great because the sizing tends to, on the large size, tends to be about right. Allows you to grip and push in those pinch clips and then be able to pull on it in very tight spaces. The 45 degree angle does give you a nice purchase for pulling and other situations such as grabbing and pulling zip ties, that type of stuff in compact or restricted areas. And of course you do have a good grip because the distance between the end of the jaws and the pivot here, or the fulcrum, is pretty small. I think that's even shorter than an inch. Let's take a look here. From the tip of the jaws, we're looking at 3/4 of an inch. And then if we look at the leverage that you get from the handles, 4.5 inches. So you can do the math. It's like a 5-to-1 leverage ratio. So you don't actually have to squeeze that hard to be able to get a lot of grip, just because these are, even though they're small, once again, very large lever compared to the length of the jaw. So you do get a pretty solid grip, which means you don't have to squeeze quite so hard, and they're less likely to slip off because you are putting more pressure than you would on something, say, like these Quins here, which have a much smaller ratio. Surprisingly enough, these Quins, it's about 2.25 inches, and then on the long handle, that's about 5.5 inches. So in that case, you're getting about 2.5 times leverage, where these little pliers, you're actually getting a 5 times multiplier. Kind of interesting. And something to consider. And it's nice that they have a little bolt, prevailing torque bolt. This is a little nut that's been upset, crushed a little bit, so it acts as a lock nut and doesn't want to come loose. So I just wanted to do a little video about these, because these tiny little angled head slip joint pliers are actually still pretty darn useful today. There's so many other sets of pliers out there, but when they get smaller, in certain situations, more traditional designs, such as a slip joint, is really great because it just makes a thin, light tool that's actually still pretty strong and pretty versatile. And I had some channel locks, but I think I lost them, or they're buried somewhere, so I was kind of stoked to find this little pair of pliers. I always think it's neat. The little tools are neat, and wanted to share that with you all. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.